Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Thursday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN, right here on Game Plus Network. Chris Meaney here with you, riding solo. We appreciate you guys hanging out. I see Mark Carr already in the chat. Absolutely love it. If you're hanging out here live on our FTN Network YouTube page, if you could please smash the like button, as my old buddy Pat Mayo loves to say. If you have any comments, any questions, by all means, leave them there. We're going to touch on all the sports happening today. A little bit of NBA news, a little bit of NHL news. I got some fantasy hockey, way too early rankings towards the later part of the show. Our very last episode of Dangle Bet Selly, hopefully not of all time, just for the season. We recorded it this morning. It is live at our FTN Network YouTube page, ftnbets.com. Also going to be live on Game Plus Network at 5 Eastern. I guess not technically live, but Eric Young and myself, we broke down basically everything. Kevin Fiala was traded yesterday to the LA Kings, and then he signed a 7-year contract. We talked about that. We also just addressed our fantasy hockey rankings. Again, way too early, but the people wanted it, and if the people want it, you get it. It's like, I mean, right now, if there's something you'd like to see on this show, reach out. Let me know. I'd love to try to make this show as best as possible for you guys. It is really all about you guys. But, you know, that show, we dove into top 15 forwards, each of us, defensemen and goalies. Just had a little bit of a fun convo with some of our favorite fantasy hockey people in the business. And we did have some people hang out with us live. So larger breakdown on Dangle Bet Selly, but towards the end of the show, just going to kind of wrap up the show with that. We have some MLB picks and some MLB props. Yesterday was okay, not bad. We did get the Twins over team total, which we talked about. Got lucky, honestly. Sometimes you need a little bit of luck. We had over 4.5 runs for the Twins, and I was really sweating that one, giving it to you guys early. That's the thing about giving some picks early without knowing the lineup. Yesterday, Minnesota rested Carlos Correa, and they rested Byron Buxton, but that game went into extras. So we ended up getting the 4+ runs because of extras. I think Minnesota scored maybe 3 in the top of the 10th. And we got a little bit lucky that Carlos Correa came in the top of the 10th. We had him for an RBI, and he had a pinch hit RBI single. But, you know, if he didn't play in that game, it depends. Some books, you know, he didn't start, so that would just be voided, that prop. Other books, you know, he made an appearance in extras and he had an RBI, so you would have cashed in on that one. Was plus 143 for an RBI. But we did not get Jorge Polanco over 1.5 total bases. We did not get Gary Sanchez for a home run. Quantrill was okay, didn't give up any bombs, but he still gave up a lot of contact. I think I'll still continue to pick on him moving forward from like an MLB prop standpoint. And then we had Shohei Ohtani, of course, over 6.5 strikeouts. My goodness, like Shohei Ohtani, it's crazy. I saw that Jeff Passan tweeted this out this morning. I know I continue to talk about Shohei a lot, and you know he's not getting a ton of buzz, you know, from an MVP standpoint, even though he is. I mean, he's got the second best odds and he's right there. But I lost it. It's like 2.5 wins above replacement for Shohei over the last 3 weeks as a pitcher. He's been absolutely lights out. Maybe I get some statistics from you in a little bit. MVP voting should take account many, many more things than wins above replacement. This from Jeff Passan. But they do offer an interesting primer, and that's American League right now is a doozy per Fangraphs. Rafael Devers 4.1, Judge 4, Ohtani 4, Trout 4, Jose Ramirez 3.9. So we had his 6.5 strikeout prop at plus money. I don't know why books are still continuing to give Shohei Ohtani plus money, 6.5. We talked yesterday. He struck out guys like the White Sox don't strike out a ton. He had 11 Ks yesterday, had 24 swing and misses against a team that doesn't really strike out. The start before they had 13 strikeouts against Kansas City, doesn't really strike out. Astros, 21 strikeouts and 2 starts against them, a team that doesn't really strike out. I can go up and down the board. He's been dominant at home this season. Last year he was dominant at home. I don't understand, but we got it. It was nice. That was nice to get that one because it wasn't all good. We had Patrick Wisdom again for another home run prop that we had against Hunter Green, who did give up a bomb, but it was not to him. And I think it was to Contreras. So another righty got the best of Hunter Green. But the start was okay from him. He's a guy that strikes out so many batters. It's either a strikeout or a home run. I think we'll continue to kind of pick on him a little bit as well. So MLB props and picks, we'll try to rebound from yesterday. And I do have a fantasy football target for you. And today we are going to start to preview the NFC North. And we will lead with the Green Bay Packers. It's a very weak division. The Packers, of course, without Davante Adams? How's the offense going to look like? I think they're going to run the rock quite a bit with AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is in for a monster season when it comes to receptions. And then who's going to be the go-to guy for Aaron Rodgers? Allen Lazard, they draft Christian Watson. They do have Sammy Watkins on the squad. MVS is no longer a part of the team. They got Randall Cobb still hanging around. This is like not ideal, really, for Aaron Rodgers, but somebody has to step up. Mark Carr is in the house, and he says, is this Aaron Jones's last year in his contract? Just thinking dynasty and the fact that Green Bay hates paying people. They do. They surprisingly paid him. They just signed him to a 4-year deal. I want to say it was last year before the season started. I do believe he has an opt-out, Mark. I could check in the commercial break. I think there's an opt-out, a potential out for the Packers. I believe there's a lot of dead money to that, almost $10 million. But I do believe he is signed this year and the next 2 years. I want to say he's got 3 years left. We can hook that up in the break, but I think AJ Dillon is a nice little dynasty target, but I don't think anybody's really getting rid of him. I think, people realize that he's the future there in the backfield for Green Bay. Speaking of football, what we've been talking about all week on this show, Jeff Ratcliffe's game plan is live, and it has 300 player profiles, cheat sheets, auction values, top rookies are ranked, advanced stats, 40-plus tools over at ftnfantasy.com. You can get lost for days in them. Rankings for all the platforms, standard, half point, full point, super flex, 2 quarterback leagues. Jeff has you covered. And then the game plan itself, if you want to have it, it's $84.99. It is his game plan is included in here. You got the 12 months of fantasy football. So we'll be with you over these next couple months to help you draft your squad and with you throughout the season as well. We got start and sit tools. We got projections. We got a Discord channel where you can ask a question at any moment to anybody that you want. And then also the rookie scouting guide is included in there as well. My rankings, best ball stuff, breakouts, sleepers, targets, high stakes stuff. Nelson Sousa's got rankings there. One of the better high stakes players in the game. So a lot there included in that package. You can use the promo code Meaney, save yourself 20%. Or you could have just gave your favorite fantasy football target in the comment section of these shows, and then you are in a draw to win a fantasy platinum football package. And we are going to give away one today, and we're going to do this again next week. So if you've missed out, you're just watching now on Game Plus, you want to find out how you get involved, you head on over at Chris Meaney on the Twitter machine. I tweet out all of these shows, and then, youtube.com. I'm sure you've heard of it. You could sign up, takes 2 seconds. You can subscribe to our FTN Network YouTube page. You can find one of these latest videos and drop your favorite fantasy football target. And we'll do it again all week next week. We won't have a live show tomorrow, Canada Day. We will have like an underdog best ball. We're doing a draft, underdog best ball. Promo code FTN, save yourself a little bit of cash. We got best ball rankings and stuff over there. And then July 4th, very similar. I'm going to preview a division, and we won't have like any live MLB picks and things like that. We'll just, the bet trackers over at ftnbets.com. We'll have all kinds of picks there for sure for July 4th. A lot of afternoon action going on there as well. But we will be back to doing live shows, you guys hanging out with us Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we'll give away another package on Friday. So I got some names in here. It is the Halos hat. Big dub from them last night. I didn't think they were going to lose that game. I'm going to lie, but we did get Shohei. So here we go. Drum roll. Don't hear it. No drum roll. No sound effects. What do we got? Oh, Mehdi. He's I think I'm pronouncing this right. Mehdi, my bad. I know you're a fan of the show. A lot of support. Appreciate it. You jumped in and you gave a comment, and then I see you sometimes retweeting some of the stuff. I do appreciate it. Your target was, I don't know if you can see that, Rashad Bateman. It was Rashad Bateman. And I think he's a hell of a target, right? I think we chatted about him earlier in the week. Just not a lot of pieces there in the wide receiver room. I think Devin Duvernay has the most catches for his career out of all the Baltimore wide receivers, and I think he's hanging around 56 grabs. So Rashad Bateman, Pretty good target. Congrats to you, sir. If you want to reach out to me, meanstreetsftn@gmail.com. Reach out at Chris Meaney. DMs are open. Slide on in, sir. You have yourself the Fantasy Football Platinum Package, which is included in there, Jeff Ratcliffe's game plan. We're going to take a little break. We're going to dive into some NFL news. Miles Sanders is in the news. Dejounte Murray was traded yesterday to the Atlanta Hawks. We'll dive into that. Also, Kevin Fiala. We do have some MLB picks as well to come. Lots to get to here on Mean Streets. Keep her locked. Welcome back in. Let's adjust this camera on the fly, give myself a little bit more headroom. Live television. We can duck down here a little bit, and there we go. It feels like a Friday because tomorrow's like Canada Day and things, so we're a little wacky here on this show. But I agree, Mark Carr. Bateman is a really strong target. I think he's a great target, and congrats to you, Medi. Fantasy Football Platinum package your way. I did look at Aaron Jones. I looked at Aaron Jones, Mark, for you. So there's a potential out in 2023. That would be 2 years left after that. So it's dead cap of $9.58 million, according to the website. It's like, what website is that, Chris? Like, who knows? It's Sport Contract is a pretty good website for. It's like sport. It's what is it here? Just let me get it. Oh yeah. Spotrac, SPOTRAC.com. And it has like all the sports. I mean, cap friendly is amazing for NHL, but this will help if you're looking for like contract deals. So he did sign a 4-year, $48 million contract, which began in 2021. So this is year 2 of that. And then there's the potential out after the 2 years. But he is signed through 2023 and 2024 as well. So he'll be a UFA there after 2024, seeing if Green Bay wants to get out of that or not. But yeah, spotrac.com. All right, so a lot of little news items. Do we want to tee up Miles Sanders first? Miles Sanders was in the news yesterday, and he was on a podcast, and he was talking a lot about the Philadelphia Eagles. He was actually pretty excited about the Eagles offense. You know, he was saying things that, for me, as a team that follows the team really closely, things like you get excited about, but you also don't want to hear because, you know, it could backfire. But, you know, he's clearly feeling pretty good about the Eagles. He talked about the team being potentially unstoppable offensively. You know, they bring in AJ Brown, Devonta Smith in year number 2, Jalen Hurts. The offensive line is one of the best, if not the best, in all of football. And Miles Sanders running behind that offensive line. But he was asked about basically his involvement in fantasy football and if he hears a little bit about fantasy football. So let's play the clip. We got this from social media yesterday.
It's funny with fantasy football. How often do you get people, fans, kids, whatever, coming up on the street or wherever you are asking you to do something for fantasy?
Look, man, I can't fantasy football. I don't care about it. I honestly don't. I don't. I can't give you the points you guys want if I don't. So that's how I feel about fantasy football. So you're gonna keep getting 2 to 3 points if that's how our offense is, man.
Got to get that ball.
Yeah, don't pick me up on fantasy no more. I'll just say that. I really don't care.
So a couple takeaways. That was from NBC Sports Edge. The guy on the left was John Clark, who covers the Eagles, who has covered the Eagles for quite some time. And of course, you heard there from Miles Sanders. A couple takeaways I have for me. One, he doesn't care about fantasy football. Two, he doesn't really love the way he's used in this offense. Did you guys get that from that clip as well? I kind of got that. Like he doesn't really feel like he loves the way he's used, like 2 or 3 points here and there. He kind of mumbled around the fact that, this is just the way the offense is. He scored 0 rushing touchdowns last year. He didn't get the ball all that much. Like he wasn't a back that got the ball a ton, like 20 plus times it's something that really hasn't happened over the course of his career. I don't know why. I think he's a really, really strong running back. His rookie season, he was one of 4 backs to have 4.6 yards per attempt, over 40 grabs, over 400 receiving yards. He had over 800 rushing yards. He was like 1 of 4. It was Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Miles Sanders, and CMC. And then in year 2, he was one of 3 backs to have 4+ runs of 40+ yards. It was him, Derrick Henry, and Nick Chubb. He has very explosive games where he's running the rock, and he struggled as a pass catcher in each of the past 2 seasons a little bit. But some of that over the past couple of years was Doug Peterson using multiple backs. Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, and the one year when they won the Super Bowl was Jay Ajayi, Corey Clement, and then LeGarrette Blount. And then, they had Miles Sanders, and then they were messing around with Boston Scott. And then even last year in some red zone packages, you see Kenneth Gainwell in there as well. Clearly, he's not used the way that he wants to be used, but that doesn't mean he won't be this year. He's in the final year of a deal. I don't see a future for him in Philadelphia. The coaching staff realized halfway through the year, like, let's lean on the run game here. They had Jalen Hurts dropping back just as much as Tom Brady. It really wasn't working for them. I mentioned the strong offensive line that they have, so they can maybe just give him a ton of touches in the backfield, kind of run him into the ground a little bit. It doesn't, and if you're Philly, why wouldn't you do that? Especially if he's not part of your long-term plans. And I don't think that he will be. And I think the writing is on the wall, the way that they use him. But he's a guy that could fall into more work. There's a couple things that I take away from that. And what I just said is that he would like to be used a little bit more, and he doesn't feel like he's going to be used that way. But the fantasy community will freak out. I already saw people talking about Kenneth Gainwell. Let draft Kenneth Gainwell, move him up the board. Why? Why would you do that? I understand some people like him as a breakout candidate, but the same thing should apply as Miles Sanders. Yes, the price tag is cheaper and you get Kenneth Gainwell for cheaper, and maybe he's a guy that falls into more touches, but ultimately the reasons that you don't like Miles Sanders and people don't like Miles Sanders in the fantasy community, he's telling you not to draft him, is because they have Jalen Hurts, who led all quarterbacks in rushing yards, who led all quarterbacks in rushing touchdowns, who was the reason why Miles Sanders wasn't getting a lot of the work at the goal line. It was Jalen Hurts. A lot of that will probably carry over again this season. But because of this, and this is how the fantasy community reacts, and they overreact. Because of this footage, people will bump down Miles Sanders. He's already going in the 8th round. We've already talked about him being a terrific value. Jeff Ratcliffe mentions it as well. I've heard him say it on Jake's show, All in Football. You can catch on Game Plus Network. I see it in his draft kit. He doesn't have him ranked highly, but he thinks he's a really good value in around round 8. And I do too, especially, you can make a case for a lot of people in best ball. Jake says that all the time, and I agree with him. But for best ball leagues, if you want to stack wide receivers, we talked about this. You want to get a bell cow in the first round by all means, and then hammer wide receivers. And then you got guys like Melvin Gordon and Miles Sanders who are just kind of hanging around. round 8, round 9. This guy's going to fall down draft boards a little bit. And I tweeted out last night that I thought Kenneth Gainwell would move up and be overvalued and Miles Sanders would move down and be undervalued. I do believe that's going to be the case here over these next couple weeks. And I had people reply to me, you don't want Miles Sanders. You don't want him. He's just going to be frustrating. He's not going to get the touches. He's not going to get the goal line work. And I get all that. I understand it. But at the same time, you're getting a guy, offense is going to be fine. It's going to be good behind one of the best lines. He's going to get his touches. There is a ceiling there. There's some upside. And you're getting a discount because of last year's 0 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown in the playoffs for what it's worth. Does that matter? I don't know. Against the Bucks, he did score a touchdown then. I think it's pretty good value for Sanders. And you can be frustrated. Sanders is going right now over the last 5 weeks, ADP 86. He's got a min of 52. He's got a max of 123. You can get this guy outside the top 100 picks, round 9 and round 10 to be your RB3, upside to be an RB2. I think the price is worth it. That's all I'll say about Miles Sanders. I did want to bring that up, so appreciate you guys, Tyler and George, making that work for us here on Game Plus Network. A couple other news items as we just kind of switch over to other sports, staying in the Big Four. In the NBA, the association, there was a big trade that went down yesterday between the Atlanta Hawks and the San Antonio Spurs, and it was Dejounte Murray getting flipped to Atlanta. You see there, the Hawks traded Gallinari. It's just another team for Gallinari. Multiple first-round picks. They are protected, and then in return, all-star guard Dejounte Murray. And I saw from the FTN Bets account, somebody had, I think it was our guy Benny running the accounts, and he tweeted a link out there for those who have Caesars Sportsbook. You got a little bit of a bonus match there using promo code FTN. The Hawks are 25-1 to win the NBA championship. I don't know. This makes them better. It certainly does. I don't think they're there yet, but this is Murray's a really, really, really strong player, and the Spurs are tanking. There's no question about that. They are indeed tanking. So I don't know. Trey, it's a good 1-2 punch in the backcourt. Murray will probably be the ball handler, I would say. I'd say maybe Trey has the ball in his hands a little bit less. Murray has it in his hands a little bit more than Trey, and Trey's a really good, catch and shoot guy as well. So I think it's going to be a really good 1-2 punch. There was a couple other news items here from Waj. Brooklyn Nets guard Patty Mills declined his 6.2 option. He's going to become a free agent. Just to hammer home again those picks, the picks were a 2025 and 2027 first rounders. Oh, they are unprotected Atlanta first round picks. My bad. They're unprotected. I thought that they were protected. So 2025 and 2027 headed to San Antonio, unprotected. Of course, we all know that everybody is tanking for the 7'3", 18-year-old Wembanyama, right? I think his wingspan is like 7'9", and he's like 9'7" standing reach. He's projected to be the first overall pick, I think, in 2023. Absolutely crazy stuff there. DJ Osborne in the house. What's up, sir? Can only hold one. Bateman, Gabe Davis, or Ayuk. I would keep Bateman. It's a little bit crowded in San Fran, run first team, rookie quarterback. I view Trey Lance as a rookie quarterback. We've seen him twice. I know it's going to be his sophomore season, but it's been the first full year of him. A lot going on. I do like Gabe Davis. I think, do you have a penalty? Is this clearly it's a keeper league and a dynasty league? Is there any penalty? I think I'd rather Bateman long term, but Gabe Davis, I wouldn't be shocked if he had a better season this year than Bateman. But Bateman's going to be the guy. He's going to get more targets. I think, there could be a bit of a higher ceiling this year with Gabe Davis just linked to Josh Allen and that Bills offense. But I believe I would roll with Bateman there in that situation. If you're still hanging out, DJ, and you want to just say if there's any penalties there to keeper, it is a keeper league. Is there any penalties? Is there any penalties for you? Do you have to forfeit some of my keeper leagues, the way they work, you forfeit, if you drafted the guy in the 8th round, then the next year, if you wanted to keep him, you would lose your 6th round pick, just like 2-year penalty. And then the following year, you lose your 4th. And then my keeper leagues, I like to just, everybody that was drafted in the first 3 rounds, I like to put them back in the pool to kind of keep the league competitive. I don't want the person who came last to, not have a really good first overall pick. You should have, some solid players there available to them. So if you have any keeper restrictions, by all means. Speaking of NBA from Mark, do you know any good Dynasty NBA people to follow? I follow Zach from the other day, but looking mainly for Dynasty fantasy purposes. Not off the top of my head. I do play in a League of Leagues fantasy format where we draft NBA MLB and NFL, so I do keep tabs on the NBA. I don't feel like I'm a strong NBA dynasty follow, but maybe I can do some digging and come at you next week with a name or two. But I think Zach's the man. Like, Zach's the guy. I don't believe that anybody knows more than him, honestly, when it comes to prospects. I mean, he coaches younger guys. He is super in tune with a lot of players overseas and a lot of the younger players as well. G League stuff and college, he's in tune as well. What I will say is Walter Waddell, we had him on the show. He runs a college basketball show for us. I forget his Twitter handle. I'll try to find it in the break. He's a stud. Like, he follows the college basketball so closely that, I got to think that he would be able to translate that into like a keeper in a dynasty and like just a overall fantasy basketball standpoint. No, he doesn't do a lot of fantasy basketball, but he just follows the college game so closely that he could probably give you a little bit too. I think it's Walter Waddell. That's the Twitter handle. Looking for a similar league of leagues purpose too. Those are the best league of leagues. I want to get into one where there's hockey, of course, and have the big four, but the group that I'm in, ESPN, it's Brad Evans is in it, and Andy Behrens, Pat Mayo, and I run a team. It's super fun. Dub Deuces 85. Thank you, George. Dub_Deuces 85. Walter Waddell. He's a really sharp college basketball mind. Man, George, you're all over it. Tyler's all over it. You guys are all over it. One more news item here, and it's Kevin Fiala. So Kevin Fiala was shipped yesterday to the LA Kings, and then the Kings went and extended him 7 years, $7.875 million. Faber headed the other way, a prospect from the Kings. A really good trade the other way. I mean, he wasn't going to sign with LA. I think reports suggested that he wanted to play a mini anyway, so it kind of worked out. They also gave their first round pick to the Wild in return. Kevin Fiala, we talked about the Kings, I believe, on Tuesday on this show, about a 45-1 sprinkle potentially. Love their squad. As of today, they are 40-1. I think that's still pretty good value. They have a really deep prospect pool. I think they'll be just fine, but adding Fiala, who is a four-time 20-goal scorer, 40 goals last year, breakout campaign in a contract year, but he's only 25 years old. He drives a lot of offense. His expected goals at 5-5, inside the top 20 according to Natural Stat Trick. He's a really, really strong player. He's going to help their power play. I kind of view him as a guy that probably plays in the second line with Philip Deneau. Adrian Kempe worked really well alongside AJ Kopitar. They could load it up if they want. They got Victor Arvidsson there as well, and I just think it's a really good get. I think the Kings are really, really, really good on the rise. I have some questions about them in goal and maybe defense, but they have some guys to some young players like Dursey, and Drew Doughty missed a lot of time, and he was really, really strong for them last year. I think he still has a couple more really strong campaigns in him. I like the move. I like the move from both sides, but I really like the move from LA, and I don't think they're done. I think they're going to be busy. I think they're going to do a couple more things, and I think they're going to be a team. They're a really, really strong 5-5 team. They're really stingy. Almost beat the Oilers. I know it's not saying much, but they almost beat the Oilers in that 7-game series. And with Kopitar and Deneau, really two strong defensive centers, I think LA is certainly on the rise. And I think at 40-1 is still worth the sprinkle as well. All right, that's it for NHL news. We got some MLB picks here. We're going to preview the Green Bay Packers. We got a fantasy football target as well. It is a wide receiver. It is not Rashad Bateman. We will talk about Bateman's former teammate. Maybe I gave it away. Lots to get to here on Mean Streets. Keep her locked. Welcome back in. Mean Streets here on a Game Plus Network. So I got a couple MLB props and picks for you guys. As I said, yesterday went okay. It wasn't as bad as what I thought after you have a decent day. Usually it kind of goes the other way, but I think we flirted around 500. I think it was a positive day overall in the bet tracker. I'm going to lead here with Kikuchi. You say Kikuchi, I say no thanks. Over 4.5 hits is plus money. Over at DraftKings, I do believe that is plus 120. And, my one fear with Kikuchi is that he could just get lit up early and he could be yanked, right? His last start came in Milwaukee, 2 innings. He gave up 6 hits, 5 earned runs, 2 homers, and he struck out 5. He checks in with a 5.08 ERA. He's walking 5 per 9, so he doesn't last a whole lot. That's why he's not going deep into games, because he's just walking guys. He had to start against the Yankees before that, where he only went 4 innings. He gave up 3 hits, 2 homers. He's actually given up at least 2 homers in 3 straight starts and 4 of his past 5 outings, but he's walked a lot of guys lately. He's walked 11 batters over his last 4 outings rather. And, the Rays are not bad against lefties. Like, they got some scrappy hitters. They're inside the top 15 in team WOBA against lefties. They're flirting with a 313 WOBA, 110 average overall, or 110 WRC plus against southpaws. So again, it's my one fear that Kikuchi maybe just, walks 2 or 3 guys early, gives up a bomb or 2, and then he has a short leash and he's gone and he's out. But ultimately, the Rays against lefties, they have the 3rd lowest strikeout rate in baseball. And it's not like Kikuchi's a big strikeout guy. I do believe that they'll be able to make some contact against Kikuchi. So give me the over 4.5 hits at plus 120. Over at DraftKings, free prop shop parlay calculator to get the best possible odds. Even Kikuchi, again, if you look at the game log, you're like, wow, this guy, 6 hits, 5, 9. There's a couple here with 1, 2, 3 went through a stretch where he was okay in May. But, man, ultimately, this guy's just not a great pitcher. So give me the Rays to get 5 hits today. And then I got a couple other MLB props for you. I am picking on a couple pitchers here. So Kyle Hendricks, over 5.5 hits allowed. Minus 125 going up against the Cincinnati Reds, over 4.5 runs. I like the Reds to get to Hendricks here today and to score 5. Logan Gilbert over 5.5 Ks, and then the New York Yankees on the money line. Let's just talk about Hendricks here just a little bit. This is a guy who has an extreme. It was tough for me to get that out. Like, what word was I going to look for here? It's the contact rate. A 78.5% contact rate, 79.6% contact rate for his career last year at 81.5%. This is a guy that does not get any swing and misses. He doesn't strike anybody out. 6.7 Ks per 9. This year, years past, he kept the ball on the ground and he had the 7 and 8K per 9, and it was doable because he kept the ball on the ground and he gave you a decent ERA and the ratios were fine if you owned him in a season-long league. But this year, he just kind of blows up your ratios. He's got a 4.90 ERA. The xFIP is right around there as well. The fly ball rate is the highest it's ever been for his career, so he can give up a couple bombs. But ultimately, this is just a guy that gives up a lot of hits, gives up a lot of contact. So I do believe the Reds can get to 6 hits. And I think they can get to 5 runs as well. Now, I will say that Hendricks is coming off a really good start against St. Louis, is a team that he's had a lot of success against. But before that, against the Braves, he gave up 8 hits on 6 earned runs. He faced Cincinnati back on May 25th in Cincinnati. He only lasted 4 innings. He gave up 5 hits and 4 runs. So it was kind of right there at that number, which we wouldn't have got. But I like this Reds lineup lately. They've been a little bit better. I can't say I don't have too many positive things to say about the Cincinnati Reds. I'm not going to lie to you guys ultimately, but I do believe that he'll give up a lot of contact here today. And then there's Gilbert. Gilbert is a guy that I really, really like. Ultimately, he's got a lot of swing and miss in his game, and you see the Mariners. They got some solid pitching prospects there. So this is a good spot against the Oakland Athletics. The Athletics are one of the worst teams in all of baseball. I know you guys are not here to hear me talk about that. It's not breaking any news. If you follow the game of baseball, you are well aware that this is a team in the bottom 3 in a WOBA, ISO, OPS, WRC plus, on base percentage. They have one of the highest strikeout rates in all of baseball. They have one of the highest swinging strike percentages in all of baseball as well. And I'm looking over at Fantasy Labs, and the Oakland Athletics have a run implied total of 3 today. It is the lowest on the slate. So I do believe Logan Gilbert could go maybe 7 or 8 innings here in this start. And if he can go 7 or 8 against Oakland, we love the park that he's pitching in here into Seattle, then he could rack up 8 or 9 strikeouts. He's got 89 punch outs in 88 innings, so it's 9K per 9. The walk rate is not awful, 2 walks per 9. And, again, against Oakland here is a team he hasn't faced yet, but he's had at least 6 strikeouts in 3 straight and 4 of his past 5. And they've been against some tougher teams. The one that he didn't get to 6-7 strikeouts was against Houston, just a team that strikes out not really all that much. So I'm in on Gilbert. You see that it's juiced here a little bit. I think it's fine at -150. But maybe you can just chuck that into a parlay. Maybe you put that in with Kikuchi or maybe Hendricks over 5.5 hits, and then it's kind of more worth your time. As for the Yankees here, -121 on the road against a really good team in the Astros. Yesterday we saw Jordan Alvarez get carted off, and then Jeremy Pena left as well. I don't believe we'll see either of those guys. The Astros lineup is still really good. Of course, Jose Altuve, Kyle Tucker, Alex Bregman starting to come around a little bit. But this is going to be a quote-unquote watered-down lineup just a little bit for the Astros without Jordan Alvarez, who's having a fantastic season. And so is the rookie Pena. My goodness, he's been absolutely lit this season. So we know the Yankees, they've just been so good this year. They got Severino on the bump. I'm going to take them. And even when I gave that to George, what's that board say, guys? Sorry, -121, you just had it up. It's now -130, so it's kind of moving pretty quickly. I think people are just jumping on the Yankees right now, knowing that the lineup for New York is just going to be a little bit different for them today. So that's it. There's not a lot of action around the diamond. There's just a handful, so I just didn't want to give you guys just plays for the sake of giving you guys plays, but I do like all those as well. If I were to give one more, it probably would be Shane Bieber. I think he could rack up 6 or 7 strikeouts today against the Minnesota Twins. But you guys know I've been all over the Twins lately. I've been digging them. All right, we're going to give a little bit of a break from the MLB talk. We're going to switch gears and wrap up the show with football and some hockey. We will talk about one of my favorite targets in round 4 of NFFC leagues here next on Mean Streets. My fantasy football target of the day is a wide receiver who was traded at the NFL draft to the Arizona Cardinals. It is Marquise Hollywood Brown. I am absolutely excited about this guy. Oh, man, he had a career year last year. 91 grabs, 1,000 yards. He had 6 touchdowns. You see 11.1 yards per reception. Air yards at 31%. Target share at 26%. His ADOT at 11.25. His red zone targets last year, 31. He had a wide receiver 22 finish, 14.1 fantasy points per game from a full point setting. And you see where he's going in drafts. His wide receiver 17 over the last 4 weeks. NFFC high stakes leagues, people putting their money on the line, willing to draft him as wide receiver 17, and the ADP is sitting there at 44. I have him aggressively ranked at wide receiver 16. I don't think you really need to take him. We talked about him quite a bit yesterday with Jake Seeley, All in Football. I mentioned that it can be found on our FTN Network YouTube page as well as Game Plus. And Jake is like, he does a really good job of making his shows fun. And I was on there yesterday with Stepmom Lauren, and he was playing a little like roulette wheel. So he would give you a wide receiver, and he would say, do you want him or do you want to spin the wheel, take a risk on another wide receiver? And he just left like the top 20 out. So he gave me Marquise Brown. You know, if I could have gotten Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson, I'd say yes, I'd rather those guys. But I kept him. I think Lauren kept him as well. We may spun the wheel, but I want him. I think he's in for a really good season. And you saw the note there, and it is not everything to do with Kyler Murray, but these guys are very familiar with each other. Kyler Murray won the Heisman in 2018, Oklahoma. Brown was his wide receiver, 75 grabs, 1,300 yards, 10 scores. There's a couple things that are in play here. Like, there was a lot of talk. Kyler wanted Marquise Brown on his squad. Like, guys, can you get him? Can you try to acquire him? And then they're BFFs. There's a lot of this going around in the NFL, right? Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown are BFFs apparently, but also like he played, college football with Devonta Smith. You got Burrow and Jamar Chase. You have Tua Tagovailoa and Jalen Waddle. You have all these like connections around the league. And there's another one. Here's the latest. Like, these guys are clearly very familiar with each other. So I am drinking that Kool-Aid. I'm buying into that just a little bit. And I loved hearing just the reaction from both of those guys when the trade went down and how happy they were. Marquise Brown said, I didn't even want to tell him. Like, I didn't text him. I wanted him here outside. Like, I knew for a little bit that it was going to happen. I didn't want to get his hopes up. And then just wanted to have him here on his own. And he's like, hey, man, you bugger. Like, why didn't you tell me? Like, oh my God, like, let's go. Because Kyler's just been surrounded in the news in this offseason. He's unhappy, wants a new contract. Is Arizona going to, give him that kind of contract? He had a bit of a disappointing finish last year. But also, let's keep in mind, there's no Christian Kirk. There's no DeAndre Hopkins for the first six games of the season. Arizona really struggled without D-Hop in the lineup. But Hopkins is a little bit older now. He's also coming off an injury. I found that he didn't really get much separation last year. He's very touchdown dependent. So right off the get-go, week one, Marquise Brown is going to be Kyler's guy. You got AJ Green, who's a little bit older. Zach Ertz was great, right? They got 2 or 3 other tight ends on the roster, but Zach Ertz was great. He's probably going to average his 4 or 5 crabs a game, maybe 6, 7 targets. But Brown's going to be the number one guy. He's going to be the deep guy in this offense. There's going to be no Hopkins for the first 6 weeks. Rondell Moore is going to take a little bit of a larger role in year 2, but he's still, a young buck learning the playbook. I think that Marquise Brown is an absolutely fine target. I was actually surprised to see him go here over the past 5 weeks, because over the past 8 weeks, you see Marquise Brown as wide receiver 23 off the board. But over the last 4 weeks, as you see the note there, he's going early. Wide receiver 17, ADP 44. He's got a min of 31 and a max of 101. Like, there's a huge range here, because other guys that are going around him, Michael Pittman, who we brought up yesterday, I don't know if we have the Michael Pittman board, Tyler. I don't know if you have that board or not, but his statistics, Pittman, are very, very similar to Marquise Brown. And everybody is talking about Pittman being a potential to be a wide receiver 1. Why can't Brown? I guess because Hopkins will be back and that's it. You do have him. Look at that. The air yards, the targets, the receptions, the yards, the touchdowns, it's all very, very similar. And one guy's going a little bit early. Look at that. It's almost like I copy pasted Pittman stats for Browns. It's very, very similar. Of course, there's more mouths to feed in Arizona. The offense, I think, is a little bit more pass-friendly in Arizona, a little bit more up-tempo. I think a higher ceiling in Arizona. But ultimately, I get it. There's no other weapons, and Hopkins come back and he cuts in. But there's a couple things here. Marquise Brown could be an absolute stud for you for the first 6 weeks. Maybe you want to sell high on him. Like, at that point, maybe you could just flip him if you don't think that the production can continue, or do you just have yourself a really good wide receiver the rest of the way? I'm going to draft, and I'm going to hold. Like I said, I'm very excited. Here's some wide receivers that are going in around him. So DK Metcalf, I love DK Metcalf, but I'm uncertain with the quarterback play. Like, let's be real. I think I'd rather Marquise Brown. Michael Pittman, I like Michael Pittman. We talked about him yesterday going round 3. Now we're talking about a guy in Brown who's going round 4, so you could probably get both of these guys. Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Mike Williams, Chris Godwin, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and then D. Hopkins there as wide receiver 25. And I think that's a bit of a risky pick, to be honest. Like, Hopkins, just cross them off your list. You don't want to deal with the headache of 6 weeks. If you have another couple injuries and it's like, oh my goodness, I got 2 or 3 injuries. What do I hold on to? Who do I hold on to? It just, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble, I think, with Hopkins, and he's going to fall outside the top 30, top 35 wide receivers. I just think you should cross him off. I'm in on Brown. Just to wrap it up, I like Marquise Brown quite a bit. We're going to talk about the Green Bay Packers, and I'll tell you what, there's not a wide receiver on that squad that I like as much as Marquise Brown. The draft capital is not as steep, but we will talk about the Packers from a betting standpoint and from a fantasy football standpoint here on Mean Streets next. Welcome back in. Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers here. First, Tyler, if you can just bring up, look at this picture. I love it too. George, man, always gets it done. Win total at 11. They're actually all over the place, the Green Bay Packers. 10.5 you can get. It is juiced up significantly. Man, I meant to have this. Prop Shop Parlay Calculator is your friend. So the win total at 10.5 is minus 145. That's at FanDuel. That's at BetMGM. DraftKings here is at 11 at minus 110. Unibet has 11 at minus 110. PointsBet has 11.5 at plus 110. And then you can get at Sugar Hill over 12.5 wins at plus 260 if you are really feeling this Green Bay Packers squad. They're minus 170 to win the NFC North, and they will win it. Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago. Chicago's not great. Detroit's on the rise. They're not there. Minnesota, they're just not good enough. They're okay. They're close. But they're not to the Green Bay Packers level, even without Davante Adams. And then Super Bowl 12-1, and then you see last year's record at 13-4. They only have one playoff win, I do believe, since they won the Super Bowl. They've been a team that's really struggled in the playoffs over the past couple years. I do believe they're going to get there, right? The NFC is pretty weak, let's be honest. The conference itself, the division is weak, but the conference itself, there's really just the Rams, the Bucks, and then I guess the Cowboys, but they're a little bit worse. I thought that they digressed. I thought that they took a bit of a step back. And then you got the Packers in there. Everybody else, like, there's just so many question marks. The AFC is loaded. Like, the Packers are going to get to the playoffs. Even without Davante Adams, they're going to get to the playoffs. The defense is strong. Rodgers is going to be good enough, right? Former MVP. Even without Davante Adams, he's going to be fine. Like, from a fantasy standpoint, I don't want him. But overall, like, he's going to get them W's. And most times they're just going to need to score 21, 24 points, I think, to get W's. Let's roll through their schedule. I've been doing this with some of these teams. So they open up at Minnesota against the Vikings. It'll be a tough one, division. That's one that they could potentially lose, but we'll give them the win. We'll give them the win at home opener against Chicago. So there's 2 W's. At Tampa, I give them a loss. Win against New England, there's 3. Win against, man, look at them. They go back-to-back against New York. New York Giants, New York Jets. There's 2 more wins. There's 5. They got Washington, there's 6. In Buffalo, there's a loss. In Detroit, I'll give them a win. They're at 7, but remember, they were losing last year in Detroit at halftime, and they came back. I think, Adams had a pretty big second half. Detroit's really competitive. They covered a lot of spreads last year, and I think they've got a better roster this year, but I give them the W. So what is that? They got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wins. Loss against Dallas, win against Tennessee, 8. Into Philadelphia, I'll give them that win, 9. Into Chicago, 10. Loss against the Rams. Into Miami, 11. Minnesota, Detroit to wrap it up. So I view them as a 12-win team. Again, probably flirting with 13. I think it's, if I was to take a win total, I would take the over 11.5 and get that one at plus money. 10.5 at minus 145 is just not for me unless you want to parlay a bunch of these together. It's tough. For Dynasty, who do you prefer, Hollywood Brown or Jameson Williams? Man, I love Jameson Williams. I think I prefer Hollywood Brown. I like the fact that he's linked to Kyler Murray over these next couple of years, and I don't know who the quarterback play. I don't know who's the quarterback in Detroit next couple of years, right? Eventually, Chark will be gone, and it will be Amon-Ra and Williams and Hawkinson. I still think I like Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown there. He's a good player, right? 1,000 yards last year with Lamar. He's a good player. Man, I do like Jameson, though. This is a tough one. I like Detroit. They're on the rise. Still a lot of uncertainty there, and there's a lot of just different moving pieces. Let's get to the fantasy targets. We got to get to the fantasy targets, and we'll wrap up the show with some fantasy hockey stuff. So Aaron Rodgers, quarterback 12. He was quarterback 6 overall from a fantasy point per game standpoint, tied with Jalen Hurts. He's a pass. He's an easy pass for me. I'm not interested. I just think that this team is going to run the rock quite a bit. So you got Aaron Jones as RB10, and then AJ Dillon as RB25. You see the ADP 19 and 67. Allen Lazard, Christian Watson, Sammy Watkins, Robert Tonyan. Tonyan's like going undrafted in your standard 12-team league with your buddies, 1 tight end, 2 tight ends. You can think about him. I think we'll be talking about him from a DFS standpoint here and there. I do believe he could be the number 1 option inside the red zone for Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't be shocked. I know, of course, it could be Jones and Dillon. They could run the rock with both of those guys, but I think Robert Tonyan could be that guy ultimately for Aaron Rodgers. That's why maybe as like a 2 tight end league or, from a DFS standpoint, we're talking about him at just punting the tight end position. Sammy Watkins always shows up early and then he kind of disappears. I would take the upside in Christian Watson and Allen Lazard as wide receiver 47. I've noticed as we get closer to the NFL season, Lazard is bumping up. I think we talked about him a couple weeks ago when he was wide receiver 57 on average, an ADP of 130. So he is rising up a little bit. I think he could rack up 8 or 9 touchdowns. I think he could be the go-to guy for Aaron Rodgers. There will be some consistency, but the 2 guys that I'm interested in is AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. And just take a look at them from a fantasy standpoint. So Jones finished his RB11 last year in a full point setting. He averaged 15.3 fantasy points per game. He had 32 red zone carries. AJ Dillon finished his RB23, 10.9 fantasy points per game. He had 39 red zone rushing attempts. So he had just 7 more red zone rushing attempts than Aaron Jones. I feel like he's the goal line back probably. They could sprinkle in a little bit of Aaron Jones, but what I like about Aaron Jones, and if you're in a full point setting, you got to have him on your radar. 49 grabs in 2019, 47 grabs in 2020, and 52 grabs last season in just 15 games. He's probably going to catch a career high 60 plus balls. I do believe he's going to be a big time player. He could lead this team in catches. He's not going to be phased out of this offense. The dynasty back to own is AJ Dillon. I have no problem. If you want to draft AJ Dillon, he's going to get his touches too. Is another guy who caught some balls out of the backfield as well. 34 grabs on 37 targets. He's going to catch balls out of the backfield. It could be frustrating at times. Aaron Jones is in there catching balls. Aaron Jones is getting red zone touches. It's going to be a split between the 2, but I do believe Green Bay, what they're going to want to do this year is run the rock between both of those guys. I like Aaron Jones. I think he's a great low-end RB1, and I think if you miss Aaron Jones and you attack the wide receiver position early, A.J. Dillon is sitting there for you, and I think, 4th round, 5th round, I think he's a decent target as well. I think both of those guys will return value this season. But the Packers are not getting it done in the playoffs. That's it, man. They get to the playoffs and that's out. I can't give them the benefit of the doubt against the Bucks or against the Rams. No chance. Not without a stud wide receiver. We're out of here. One more block. Just going to round out a little bit of fantasy hockey talk and kind of just sneak peek over at Dangle Bet Selly. Don't go anywhere. We're going to save the hockey talk. Again, Dangle Bledsoe you can catch on our FTN Network YouTube page. You can dive all into those rankings if you want. And also over at Game Plus Network a little bit later on. You can check that out as well. Myself and Eric Young, the very last episode, we tried to have some fun with you guys. Way too early rankings. But on the way out here, we have a little bit of a promo. And this just came to me. Producer George told me and Tyler making it happen. So let's chuck this up for those that are south of the border, I guess. Almost said north of the border. 20% off. Promo code 4th. 20% off any FTN package with promo code 4th, and it expires Monday, July 4th. So use that promo code 4th. You want an FTN betting package, all my picks, everybody's picks, projections, tools, Discord channel. Use that promo code 4th, ftnbets.com/pricing, and it'll save yourself a 20% off. I hope everybody has a great July 4th, and hope everybody has a fantastic Canada Day tomorrow. Cheers. Have a good one.